Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Adams and I look after the ecosystem at Dagger. I'm excited to be with you at PulumiUp to talk about how code and a great API is all you need. Let's dive in. We all know that your pipelines are your factory, your software factory, no matter what kinds of pipelines you're running. And pipelines can start out pretty simple. For example, in CI, you might have a build and a test, and then deploy things somehow. But over time, things start to get more complex. The platform team might be using a particular CI tool that needs things in its own YAML format. And they might also be using that tool to pull in configuration values and secrets, while the developers are using their own preferred tools. Developers need a way to test changes quickly to ensure that they're not going to break in production, but they don't want to wait for the long CI processes. And increasingly, there's no guarantee that what works on my laptop is going to work in CI or vice versa. And over time, things only get more complex. After a while, there's almost no way to guarantee that developers can create an environment that's going to be a match to what's in CI. And in fact, no one may really understand what's happening in CI anymore at all. We can get the same sort of situation in infrastructure as code, as well as in massive build artifacts like Docker files. So DevOps engineers, platform engineers, developers, everybody falls into a push and pray pattern. We push our code to Git and we hope in 5, 15, or 30 minutes that that build is going to complete, that those tests are going to pass, or that deploy is going to happen. But all too often it ends in disappointment. So our factory, it needs a reboot. Luckily, we have the technology to do it. We've already got expressive, powerful programming languages. We're using them to build our applications. We should be using them to build our pipelines and to do our infrastructure as code. And with AI copilots and IDEs, it's easier than ever for all of the team to use real code. Containers have been with us for quite a while now and provide some really great benefits, such as strong isolation from the systems they operate in, as well as robust caching since they're built up in layers. The existing CI servers we have are real workhorses. We should keep using them for what they do best. And we have more powerful dev machines on our desks than ever before. There's also a huge array of options in terms of cloud or on-prem computing, and powerful infrastructure as code plus tools like Pulumi make it easier than ever to interact with those cloud resources. So why should we use code? I think most of us know the answer, but here's a few of the top reasons. But there's even a more powerful reason why code done the right way is a real force multiplier. If you're using code right, you get one of the real superpowers, composability, the state where you can actually have reusable building blocks that click together like Lego. That is the holy grail for any system for building pipelines or specifying infrastructure. Additionally, an optimal system should be leveraging a DAG, a directed acyclic graph, to describe the relationship between the different entities. For example, we use DAGs all the time when we're talking about software dependencies, or in infrastructure, whether that load balancer and that security group have a relationship or not, for example. Or in a build, do we need to rebuild something when a source code file changes? Tracking all of those dependencies in the DAG means that we don't need to make all of those things explicit in our code, and it also means we can get that cognitive load off our minds. It gives us the best developer experience and performance at the same time, because it also helps us know when we can compute things in parallel or whether we need to do things serially. Another important point is environments. So this is a massively overloaded term. And coming from the DevOps and configuration management sides before that, I can tell you I've heard about a dozen different definitions for an environment. But the key elements often have to do with configuration and isolation. It's all about having a set of reusable code that you can plug in different values for different situations, like the dev config versus the prod config. It also might mean that it's a set of resources that you want to be able to identify. Or it may also mean that you'd like to create an isolation barrier between an underlying system and a container, for example, or between two different processes. So there's a logical and a runtime sense of isolation. And if you get this right, you've just about got the recipe to run things the same just about anywhere. So these different senses of environment, both the configuration and the isolation, and these different DAGs, maybe a DAG of the infrastructure and then a DAG of the build or of the overall application. Can these things all coexist? Why, yes, but we need a little bit of coordination. We need to think about what are the handoffs? What are the artifacts that we're passing from one stage to another? And what's the metadata about those? Like, where do they live? What are they called? I think this graphic really helps both to show the complexity of CI/CD, but also to show that the key handoff in this system is the built artifact. CI does a lot of stuff to produce an artifact that can be deployed with CD. And CD's got a lot of work to do to prepare an environment for that artifact to land in. Oh, and we also need to think about secrets and auth as well. That's a lot to handle. But spoiler alert, we're going to bring Pulumi's new IaC, Environments, Secrets, and Config, to bear to help us in the demo you'll see in just a little bit. Say we've got these different things covered. We've got code with a great API working for us that's giving us a DAG we can reason about and has everything we need in terms of environments, both isolation using things like containers and with config values that we can pull in depending on whether we're in development or in production. But then how do we orchestrate everything, all of this stuff, and bring it all together so that we can really run things anywhere? Well, for that, we need a DevOps operating system. And that's where Dagger really shines. So the Dagger engine and its SDKs in programming languages you already know, like Python, Go, or TypeScript, provide a core API for things like containers and directories full of source code and things you're pulling out of Git and services like a database that you're using for your tests. This is what the code looks like. Here's some TypeScript that shows how we could take in a source directory, build that into a website, and then put that into an Nginx container and run a web service. Well, then you might want to take some of these reusable, composable pieces of code and package them up and share them with your team or with the whole community. And that's what the Daggerverse is all about. We're going to be using the Daggerverse a little later to get some code for our demo. So now that you've got a system that can run just about anything isolated in containers that run the same everywhere, you're finally ready to give developers and platform engineers the ability to run the same locally as in CI, and in fact to have portability to any CI. This is what it might look like for a developer running Dagger on their laptop to kick off a build, and how it would look from the platform side to have this in Jenkins or GitHub Actions. And then you need a way to visualize everything and collaborate and debug when something invariably goes wrong. And that's what Dagger Cloud's all about. We'll take a peek at that a little later as well. Let's dive into the demo I've prepared. First, let's go over the plan. We're going to take an existing Pulumi project that does a container build, prepares an ECR repository, and then runs the application on AWS's ECS Fargate. And we're going to convert that to be using Dagger and Pulumi ESC. We'll keep using Pulumi to provision all that infrastructure, but we'll be using Dagger to do a more complex build and to orchestrate everything, including running Pulumi. Okay, we're going to be using Pulumi ESC to pull a lot of config and secrets and actually set some as well. And it's really, really easy to use with Pulumi's IaC. We're going to do that in a little bit. And this is how you set it up. You just create a new environment inside your organization. Mine's called AWS ECS Demo. It gives you access to this Pulumi config here. I can just edit these, add whatever I want in here. It just kind of pops up over here in my values. And then it means that I can also, I can get all of these, but I can also set things through ESC as well. And so I'm going to use that as a way to pass information between Dagger and Pulumi and do some coordination that we talked about. Also really, really cool that we've got this AWS OIDC integration here, so I can get short-lived credentials for a certain role. And then this AWS login information gets projected down here into these environment variables. So all I have to do is open this environment and I have access to these credentials. So that is great as well. I'm going to use that quite a bit. I also want to point out another UI, the Dagger Cloud UI. I use this quite a bit to do debugging, etc. And it's great to see here that when we do the more complex deploy in a little bit, what Dagger is doing is orchestrating an actual PulumiUp of a stack that's just doing the ECR, setting up the repo. Then Dagger itself is doing a more complex build of a containerized application. It's actually the Dagger docs site that we're doing there. And then doing another PulumiUp to make sure that we've got all the ECS Fargate resources and that we actually pull in this built image and deploy it. So we're going to have a lot of fun in the next couple minutes. Let's just jump right into some code. So this is actually the code that I had set up to do kind of to run things as they were. This is the OG function that I had set up in Dagger. And there's a bunch more in here, but we'll just start with this to give you a flavor. And the idea was that I was going to take in all of the original source code and a Pulumi token, and that was going to, I was going to essentially do a PulumiUp with the dev stack. And I was going to pull in some, good stuff from that environment that I have set up, and maybe run a few ancillary commands and end up with a URL for a load balancer. Okay, so you might say, okay, well, what does that original Pulumi IaC look like? So if I dig in to that a little bit, let's actually close up this Dagger source and this one here, and we can see the original one right here. So what this did, also really nice all-in-one thing, does some AWS stuff and actually does its own Docker build. So you can see here is that we pull in some Pulumi config and then set up ECS, a load balancer, an ECR repo, and then using those temporary AWS credentials, we use those to ask for temporary ECR credentials. Very, very cool. And then we get into doing a Docker build of an image and, a certain platform and with ECR credentials and, figuring out the name of the thing. And but at the end of the day, we're building it from this context directory right here, app. And it's really, really simple. It's essentially just a Docker file and saying, hey, get me an Nginx container and shove this website in there. And here it is. And so this is almost exactly how it started. I modified it slightly. So with the Dagger example, we'll show a more complex build, but this I thought was great as a start. So again, when I first got to this, there was no Dagger here. So what I did was I started out by creating a Dagger module to Daggerize this repo. I said Dagger init, the SDK I wanted to use, which was TypeScript, and where I wanted the Dagger modules code to live. I was just going to live it in a Dagger subdirectory. So that's actually all right here. Here's the Dagger JSON saying it's TypeScript. These are some modules I installed to give me some extra functionality. And some of those modules are in Golang, some of them are in Python. So it's really fun. You don't need to, we actually, Dagger will take care of doing the code generation for that. So in this Dagger directory, for example, you see SDK. This is where all of the core SDK, as well as anything that you've pulled in, any modules you've pulled in to extend that, are all code gen. So I can use them all from TypeScript, no matter what they're written in. And then this is, here we are back to the source code. So, at any time when you're inside of something that's got a Dagger module in there, you can say Dagger functions, and that's going to examine that, make sure everything's good to go, and show us what functions are available. So we're going to run this OG function here, and the way you call Dagger functions is say Dagger call OG, and then you use the arguments. So this is the source, this is optional equal sign, is dot for the current directory, and the token is actually in an environment variable that is called Pulumi token. Super original. And I've been making a lot of mistakes today, so I'm going to use -I, which stands for dash and short for dash interactive. This is going to give me, in case something goes terribly wrong, this could drop me into the container shell of basically where my failure occurred, so that then I can, maybe debug it a little bit better. So, and actually, it looks like I did hit an error. I'm actually getting something's wrong with this command. Let me run it here. Oh, yeah. Did I mean version, not Vesrian? Yes, I did mean that. Paste it. There we go. And yeah, so, okay, so I did make a mistake. Okay, but we are short on time. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move on to the next piece. So this is actually how I broke things up at the end of the day. So I took all of those different pieces that we had and I broke them up. So instead of just doing an all-in-one, I did ECR, here we go. ECR is its own stack. ECR is really, really simple. It just sets up a repository and lets you know what the repository is. And then we have Fargate here, and Fargate is going to just be actually pulling in the image ref. So this is going to be dropped by Dagger to be picked up by Pulumi. So I'll show you that in just a second. And this is actually going to create the cluster, the load balancer, and all of that other good stuff. So the Fargate service, and hopefully give us a URL that we can go to see the application. And then, actually in the Dagger portion of the program here in the middle, and this is what's actually going to orchestrate everything as well. So we're going to say up ECR, and that is going to go ahead and do a PulumiUp for us with that ESC environment in there and with the ECR stack. And then you'll notice that I've actually used my own ESC module, and that is going to give me the ability to get and set some config values. So I'm actually going to set the ECR repo value to be picked up by Pulumi itself later by IaC. Also up Fargate, similar sort of a thing. I'm going to just set the URL there kind of for fun as well. And I'm going to PulumiUp the Fargate stack. And then this is the actual build that I'm doing. And so it looks pretty small, but a lot is happening here. I'm actually using the built-in Git core API functionality in Dagger to pull in the Dagger repo. And then I'm using this Docusaurus module that I got from the Daggerverse. So I put in Docusaurus. And I'm using this Docusaurus module because I wanted to build a Docusaurus site, a production doc site for me that I can then load into a container. So it's just like going shopping when you want, you say, oh, I want some Docusaurus, I need some Git. Okay, that's already included. I need some Docusaurus. Okay, you can go to Daggerverse and find that. And what I'm going to feed in here is the docs directory from the Dagger repo we pulled in, and we're going to ask it to build. So build me some production docs and keep that in this site variable, which is a Dagger directory. And then I'm actually going to build a new container, putting in the platform that I want right here. And I'm going to say I'm going to take it from Nginx as well. And then I'm going to actually put that site that was built for me, the production docs site, and put that into the container. And I expose port 80. Now I need something to orchestrate all of this stuff. And I'm going to use this Dagger deploy function to do that. So again, here's my environment. I'm going to use my IaC module to get this little config thing, and this is going to give me the ability to get the tag, get the region, get the AWS account ID, these things that I'm going to need. And then I'm going to actually open up the config here, and that's going to allow me to get access to these AWS secrets that I want. And then I'm going to call the up ECR that we saw a little earlier. And then I'm actually going to use an AWS ECR module that I got from the Daggerverse. So this is the this ECR module that I found that lets me do this push that I want to do. So I'm just using that right here, and I'm setting it, with the credentials that it needs, doing the push. And what am I pushing? Well, I'm pushing the result of my build function. So again, this is calling up to my build function and going to put that's actually going to be pushed to this AWS account ID, that ECR repo with the tag, ECR tag, which in my case is latest. And that is, I'm going to get out, I'm actually going to take whatever the first image that pops out, because you can set multiple tags here. I'm going to set that as the image ref. Again, this is something I'm going to share over so that when the Fargate stack comes up, it can go get it. And that's what I'm actually doing right here. I can say, hey, Fargate, it's going to go and grab that image ref, and that's how it knows what it is. And so, okay, it looks ambitious, but hey, this is what we're going to do. So we're going to do from here, Dagger, call, deploy, source. Again, we're going to give it everything, and I'm going to say token, and token is equal to the environment variable Pulumi token. Let's see how that goes. So again, we are creating a runtime container for all this to happen in, and we are starting to work on all the things. Now the cool thing here is I can go and also look at this in real time over in Dagger Cloud, and I'm going to look at my traces here. Here's the one that's active for me. Yes, so I'm working on some stuff. Here's my deploy function. Here's my IaC getting some config. Here's my PulumiUp, my first PulumiUp happening. I can kind of click into that, and I can start seeing all the things that are happening with my PulumiUp, with that directory and my ECR stack and so forth, right? So I can really kind of like dig into these things. And let me back out a little bit, back out a little more. Cool, so things are happening, and you can dig into kind of whatever level you need to be at to get visibility. So let's go back over to this view here. Got that happening. We've also got, okay, a Docusaurus build is happening. Oh, very cool. So, and this is again something that you can start to see over here. Here's Docusaurus build that's taking hold. Again, we've taken in a docs directory, and we're working on that. So kind of taking care of all of that stuff. Love it. Let's go back out. And we might actually be seeing, or we had an ECR repo that got built, right? That happened already. So let's go over to the Pulumi console. Let's refresh this. Oh yes, we got an ECR repo right there. So that was actually put there through my Dagger function. So awesome. So that means Fargate should be able to, or actually I should be able to use that. We've got that. That actually came from Pulumi, from the PulumiUp of the ECR stack, and then that should be usable both for building my image with Dagger and pushing it, and then also Fargate will want to eventually know the full image ref. Here's that image ref right here. Look at that. It's forming up right before our eyes. And oh, we actually set config with that. So I set that config. So let me refresh this. Oh yeah, okay, here's my image ref. Again, so I've dropped this here so that that could be picked up by Fargate, by my Fargate stack. And now I'm executing that as well. So that means I successfully pushed the image up there, it looks like, which is exciting. Let's see if I can get some insight into that. Get some insight into that. Let's see, this is, let me close a few of these down here. So let's go in here. Here's the one that's live running. Very cool. So let's go back out here. So this was the Docusaurus. Then I was AWS ECR push. Then the PulumiUp of the Fargate stuff. Okay, I'm liking it. Okay, so let's go back out here. Aha, and we're creating some things, a cluster, a load balancer, and so forth. So we should also be able to see these resources over here on the, I'll close this one down here, on the Pulumi side. Let's look at the Fargate stack. So here's the Fargate stack. We're creating the load balancer right now. I can look at the ECR, the last ECR run that happened. Very, very cool. So this is that's that repo that got created. I love it. I love that I can see it from these different views. They all give me some, additional insight into what is happening. Okay, and so this load balancer is still creating. I'm hoping this is going to finish quickly. A fun thing is that all these pieces are kind of testable in isolation. So what I can do is I can actually use that, say that Docusaurus module, I could use that here on the command line to build the container and serve that site locally. And then I'm using that same Docusaurus module to build the production build that is actually getting put into this container and run in production. So it gives you like these different ways of like zooming in and testing each of the components in isolation, if you will. And of course you can make all of that automated, or you can jump into it manually, or you can interact with it in whatever ways are helpful. All right, so let's see. I love this view here. And like I say, I can't really say enough good things about, I really, really love this ability to both, get more static values that I need, and also to set some values to leave some notes for each other using this interface is really, really great. And then, the OIDC stuff makes it super easy to get credentials when you need them and not have them be long-lived. Let's take a look again. Get rid of this one and look at their live one here. Let's see how we're doing from the Dagger perspective. So kind of going back through it, we PulumiUp'd, we did a Docusaurus build, we did a push, we're running this PulumiUp here. Let's just kind of take a look. Everything's looking good. It's just the latest thing we're doing is this PulumiUp right here. Yeah, I like it. Oh, we have a load balancer. Look at that. Okay, so let's try a moment of truth. Boom. All right, check it out. So we're on AWS. This is the Dagger production doc site. So, wow, really cool. I love that that worked. I'm super excited. So there you go. Now you've had your crash course in using Dagger with Pulumi and with Pulumi ESC. I can't wait to see what you build with Dagger and Pulumi. Thank you so much. It's been a ton of fun.